Hello, in this video we would like to discuss the transport in plant. When we consider the transport in plants, then first we consider what is to be transported through the plants. When we consider the transporting material, then through the roots, it is already learned in very lower classes, through the roots, that is water and mineral. So through the roots, the transporting material, that is the water, minerals, both of them in the form of cell transported through the roots into the plants. And after photosynthesis, glucose is formed. That nutrients is formed mainly in the leaf and transported from the leaf into all direction of the plants. In all of the multi-directional transport of glucose and unidirectional transport of water. So the transporting material, when we consider transporting material, transporting material in plants, that is water, minerals, nutrients, and plant growth regulator. Plant growth regulator, it means phytohormone. It means phytohormone. Now the question is here, in plants, when we compare the plants and animal, so it is well known in the plants there is no any circular system like animals. So in the absence of circular system, there is no pumping station. The heart and circular system is absent in plants, but the transporting distance as transported in the plants is very far from the animals, because the height of plants may be as long as up to the 120 meter, the longest tree, and from the roots the transporting material is transported to the tip of the plants. So in this concern, the transported distance in the plants is very far from the animals, even there is no any circular system. So the distance covered by the transporting material in the plants is different from the animals, and on the basis of distance as covered by the transporting material in the plants, it is suitable to divide the transportation in plants on the basis of distance, on the basis of distance, on the basis of distance covered by transporting material. Transporting material in the plants, it is of two types: short distance covered, as suppose the water from the soil diffuses into the roots, minerals from the soils together with water diffuses into the root, it is the short distance. But when waters and minerals coming into the main taproot system of the roots, then that water and minerals is just transported into the tip of the plants against the gravity. So it is the long distance transportation, and that is the short distance transportation. So transportation is of two types: short distance covered and long distance covered. Long distance covered, if we consider the short distance covered as water from the soil diffuses or coming into the root hair or epiblema of the root hair, that is the short distance transportation, and mineral is also in the same way. But when the water is transported into the tip of the plants, it is through a channel. So for short distance, there are two methods of transportation. First, diffusion. Diffusion and second, cellular or cell streaming. What do you mean by cell streaming? It is very simple. Suppose it is a cell and that is the nucleus, then in between the cell membrane and the nucleus, it is a cell wall, then the cytoplasm, it is already known in lower classes, cytoplasm is moved, that is the cyclosis movement. That cyclosis is called cell streaming. Cell streaming, which transported something from here to there. Here to there, it means it is a intracellular. It is a intracellular transportation inside the cell with the help of cell streaming or cyclosis movement. That is the intracellular. So that is the cell streaming. When minerals coming into the root hair, in the cell of root hair, so that is through the diffusion. But that minerals is now cell to cell passes or inside the cell with the help of cell streaming or intracellular. So diffusion is intracellular, it may be intracellular, but cell streaming is intracellular. That is, cell streaming is intracellular. Intracellular. But diffusion may be intracellular or in between the cell and the outside. So diffusion may be in between the cell and the outside. So it may be intracellular or outside, but cell streaming is intracellular because it is inside the cell. And for long distance, with the help of vascular system, and vascular system is of two types, that is already known in 9th class, xylem and phloem. So it is a vascular tissue in the xylem which transported water and mineral from the soil through the root hair up to the highest point, the tip of the plants. It is a unidirectional transportation because it is from root to shoot, tip of the root to tip of the shoot, that is unidirectional against the gravity, and the phloem, that is transported the food materials, the food after photosynthesis form inside the leaf, and from the leaf it is exported to the storage part. And if there is a needs of the plants and the other part is also required, the exported material is now re-exported from the storage part to the required the needs, where that is the transported through the phloem. So the phloem transported the materials in all directions, so it is multidirectional. It is from source to sink, from the synthetic site to the site where it is demanded by the plants, and xylem is transported water and mineral from the soil into the tip of the plants. So we would like to now discuss the means of transportation. Means of transportation for short distance or long distance. The means of transportation is of two types. That is, means of transportation. Means of transportation is of two types. Energy not need by the process, or the process where energy is not needed. So on the basis of energy, the means of transportation is of two types. Energy is not needed by the process, or energy needed by the process. Energy needed by the process. When energy not needed by the process, that is called passive transport. Passive transport. And when energy is needed to the process, that is called active transport. Active transport. In the passive transport, no need of energy, no need of energy. It means no ATP, no ATP required. It is for short distance. It is for short distance along the concentration, and not sensitive to temperature and inhibitor. And here energy needed, ATP required, long distance or maybe short distance, but against the concentration, and sensitive to temperature, energy not needed, no ATP, short distance along the concentration. It means higher concentration to lower concentration, and sensitive to temperature. If temperature increases, then it is not sensitive, because here is only concentration, that is higher to lower concentration without energy. So that transportation is not sensitive to the temperature and inhibitor. But in the case of active transport, energy is needed, ATP is required. When ATP is required, it means the formation of ATP is depends on the enzymes, and enzyme dependent process is affected by the temperature. So it is sensitive to temperature and inhibitor. Inhibitor also, the substances which inhibit the process of formation ATP. When ATP is less, then the process becomes slow, and it is maybe short distance and maybe longer distance. The difference is that in the passive transport, suppose if there is 100 molecules, it is very important to consider the 100 molecules, and it is the passive transport like diffusion. In this case, when 15 molecules is transported from outside, it is the outside and it is the inside. When 50 is coming from outside into the inside, then the process becomes equal, it is equilibrium. And after gaining equilibrium, the process becomes stops. Because both in the inside and outside the molecules becomes equal, so the process becomes stops. But in the active transport, when there is 100 molecules, then all of the hundreds may be transported, because there is energy which pump the molecules from the outside into the inside, or it may be 80-20, or it may be also 80 inside and outside 20, because all of the molecules and their transportation is with the help of ATP, so it is a pump inside and outside. It is the difference between active transport and passive transport. And for passive transport, it is the diffusion, osmosis, plasmolysis, etc. is the process or cell stream. But for active transport, it is the different types of tissue, cell, which transported the material with the help of energy by the pumping, and it is against the concentration. It is not needs to maintain the concentration during the active transport system. Thanks. Next class we would like to start diffusion.